of the one, the only God. Welcome to the beloved community known as UU Amherst. I can't do two things at once. There we go. We all knew that, but I just had to verify it for you. I'm Reverend Michelle Buhait, the minister of this congregation. My pronouns, which I offer to create a truly inclusive and brave space for all to live into the fullness of their identities, are she and her. Today we welcome into our pulpit Reverend John Rex, and he is no stranger to UU Amherst. When John walked in these doors in 1977, he experienced Unitarian Universalism for the very first time, and he stayed. He became a member later that year, and he was an active UU in many ways until he entered Starr King School for the ministry in 1991. He was ordained by UU Amherst on April 9th, 1995, and went on to serve UU ministries in Virginia and Florida, as well as a ministry and travels representing the UUA, our national association, in India, Pakistan, and Sri Lanka. He's now retired and lives very nearby in Asbury Point. I first met John at the UU congregation of Jamestown, which is my home church. I think it was the early 2000s, sometime around then. And John provided pulpit supply throughout Western New York, and particularly to our lay-led congregations. The good folk of Jamestown were always glad to welcome John to our pulpit. And so welcome home, John Rex. As you came in this morning, you may have noticed that there is a round table at the back of the chapel, and I can see that it has been festooned a little bit, but there is room for more. This is our morning altar, that we have a momentary creation of beauty, recognizing that nothing lasts forever, and back there, it only lasts a week, and then we start over. So there are materials back by the table, and I hope that you will participate by adding your creativity and being part of this larger community. For those of us gathered in the chapel, I invite you to put your phones on airplane mode, or as I like to call it, worship mode, so that you and all may be fully present. And also freeing up web bandwidth for our friends who are joining on the live stream so they don't experience any hiccups. It's my favorite time, of course. It's time to sing. Our song of intention this morning can be found in the gray hymnal. It's number 360. Here we have gathered. The lyrics will also be up front. For those of you using hymnals, note that the words have been adjusted in verse 2 from women, children, men to clasping hand in hand to make the song more inclusive for those with non-binary identities. And now, please rise in body or spirit as we sing together, Here We Have Gathered.
May all see you,
Sam, you're going to light the chalice for us, right? It is our custom when we gather to light a chalice. The chalice is a cup or a vessel that symbolizes the gathered community. The flame represents the spark that each one of us brings to represent the light of truth, the warmth of community, and the fire of our commitment to bring more justice and compassion to the world. So please join me in our chalice lighting words as Sam lights the flame. We gather this hour as people of faith, with joys and sorrows, gifts and needs. We light this beacon of hope, sign of our quest for truth and meaning in celebration of the life we share together. Each week as we gather, we also acknowledge that our church is built on holy ground, ground that was first cultivated and occupied by the Haudenosaunee and the Neutrals. Sam will now offer a libation as our giveaway, a symbol of our respect for and deep connection with the land. Thank you, Sam. We are a beloved community, a gathering of people who have chosen to journey together, to encourage one another, and to be part of something important and life-changing. Because we aspire to be such a people, we make bold promises about how we will strive to be with one another. Whether today is your first time or you have made UU Amherst your longtime home, you are invited to share in our sacred promise. Together we promise to gather in compassionate community, to celebrate diversity of thought and unity of spirit, and to seek wholeness for ourselves, our children, and our world. Last Sunday kicked off our season of generosity as we make pledges of financial support to UU Amherst. Our financial contributions make this place possible, from keeping the light and heat on, it's a little chilly in here today, to paying staff, to supporting the mission and various ministries and activities of this congregation. Unlike some other faith communities, we do not receive funds from the National Association. In fact, we contribute to them so that they are able to offer programs, staff, and to continue to amplify the liberal values of Unitarian Universalism in an increasingly polarized world. Throughout this season of generosity, we will hear testimonials from members and friends who have made UU Amherst their home and who give of time, talent, and treasure. Today we will hear from longtime member Doug Funke. Don't look surprised, Doug. You said you would do it.
Thanks for doing this early. It's cold. I'm shivering by the time I get up here. As Michelle said, I am a longtime member here. I've been member here for about 40 years. Not quite as long as John, and not nearly as long as the Kents, but I've been here for most of my adult life. The first time I did one of these, I came here, I was a new member, and I talked about why I came here, what attracted me here. And it really, we were just starting a family then. I think we had one kid and one on the way. I think we ended up with 3. We raised our kids here. It was a wonderful experience for them, I think, and for me. Also, I thought it was a great place because my wife was Catholic, continues to be Catholic, so we took the kids to both churches. So they had the traditional Catholic upbringing, then the more open-minded, more broadly based values here. I think it was a good balance for them. I'm glad that we did that. I have, over the years, done a lot of things in the church, involved in a lot of activities, served on the board, served on the endowment board. I chaired and co-chaired Social Concerns Committee. I co-chaired it with Pat Burke for over 10 years. Did a lot of good social action. I'm very pleased to see that the church is continuing the tradition of social action with our our food pantry and our collection of clothing, environmental focus, so we're doing a lot of really good things. We're building on a strong tradition in this church of social action. You know, before my time, Pat, you might have been part of it, but we had a lot of projects that were involved with integration. This was back when we had redlining and segregation in this area really, really strongly. And so we had lots of programs, several programs in this church that brought, you know, the communities together, blacks and whites and Hispanics and so forth. They went downtown and bust them up here for daycare and so forth. A lot of proud history here. John Hoffman, one of our chairmen of the Social Concerns Committee, actually marched with Martin Luther King back in those days. So it's a strong social action church, and I'm proud to be part of it and been able to contribute over the years. One of the things I just want to say is that this is a difficult time for us, I think. I don't think we have quite recovered from COVID. I think our finances are struggling quite a bit, so I encourage everybody to dig deep and to make your pledge. There's some envelopes, I think they're in the back, I assume they are, but get your pledge envelope. We filled ours out. We were asking for 10%, and we're raising our pledge by 10% this year, so I hope you will join me in doing that. One more thing I just want to mention quickly, for those of us who are retired, you can set it up if you have a 401k. You can make your contributions pre-tax, and it actually counts towards your minimum required distribution, and it helps a lot, and it helped us be able to raise our pledge over this year and last year. So thank you very much, and I, again, very pleased to be a member of this church, and hope you'll contribute. Thank you.
Thanks, Doug. Each week, we bring our whole selves into this sacred time. We bring our joys, our concerns, our sorrows. The table where we gather is at the center of the space, the heart of the community. I invite you to come forward in a moment to place a stone or a shell on the table labyrinth in recognition of all that you bring and all that you are. May we remember that we are called to heal and bring love to the broken places. Come forward as you will. Today we light a special flame as we hold in our hearts all who are impacted by the various conflicts around the world. It's easy to get caught up in arguments of who is right and who is wrong, who deserves land or help or our allegiance. May we not forget that it is people behind the arguments and the ideologies. People who are in pain, who feel hopeless, who may be swept up in rhetoric or propaganda. Just people. Someone's child, someone's parent, someone's beloved. People. Let us hold these people in our hearts. Let us pray for peace and equity, and hold your own tender hearts in loving care. Let's sing together. Our reading today is by the Indian poet, composer, playwright, philosopher, painter, and social reformer, Rabindranath Tagore. Tagore lived between 1861 and 1941 and is credited with reshaping Bengali literature and music. He won the Nobel Prize for Literature in 1913 for his collection Gitanjali, and is especially noteworthy as the first Indian to receive the Nobel Prize. I chose this reading to prepare us for Reverend John Rex's reflection on cultural intelligence, and because John was so deeply affected by his own ministry in India. The image on the screen is of the Kasi Unitarians in India. Let me not pray to be sheltered from dangers, but to be fearless in facing them. Let me not beg for the stilling of my pain, but for the heart to conquer it. Let me not look for allies in life's battlefield, but to my own strength. Let me not crave in anxious fear to be saved, but hope for the patience to win my freedom. Grant me that I may not be a coward, feeling your mercy in my success alone, but let me find the grasp of your hand in my failure. And now it is my pleasure to present to you Reverend John Rex, my colleague.
Good morning. How good it is to be here. My awareness of cultural intelligence all began with the great courses. Now, you may be familiar with their frequent mailings. After I retired from ministry, one course I bought and viewed was Customs of the World, using cultural intelligence to adapt wherever you are. The lessons of this course set off light bulbs of understanding in my mind, giving me tools I had not had before. Many events of my life, some minor, some major, during my years teaching school in Ethiopia and Namibia, and serving as a minister with Unitarian groups in India, came into new focus. With this new understanding of cultural intelligence, my perspective on events in my own life experiences changed. I then followed up researching resources of the DVD course and reading as many new publications as I could get. The more I learned, the more important it seemed to me to share this information, to get the word out. The study of different cultures worldwide using modern technology developed extensively with data that was first collected in the 1960s and 1970s. And it wasn't the State Department or the military or Harvard or Stanford or other academic giants doing this work. It was IBM, with its massive multinational presence and its commitment to modern research and making money, that did the testing and evaluating and led to the creation of what is today an academic discipline, cultural intelligence. I understand this to be as much a science as sociology or anthropology, with information based on thousands of experiments covering multiple aspects of culture and yielding results that are replicable and statistically significant, complete with standard deviations, graphs, and the precision of science. We have progressed way beyond the old days of exotic tales of the other. Today, we know that cultures are different, that people think differently in different parts of the world and in subcultures within our own country. We should acknowledge that such differences need to be recognized and understood before any sort of right relationships can be achieved among peoples. So, what do I mean by culture? I am not talking about the everyday concept of artistic refinement. I'm talking about culture as the behaviors and responses learned and practiced by a group of people. The behaviors and responses learned and practiced by a group of people. Quoting one authority, culture consists of the unwritten rules of the social game. It is the collective programming of the mind that distinguishes the members of one group or category of people from others. As we live in the digital age, it seems appropriate that through research initiated by IBM, we learn of the mind as a kind of computer, which is programmed with something called culture. We all have it. We may or may not be aware of any part of it, and we certainly don't know about all of it. It is all entirely learned, not genetically passed on, learned from the moment we are conceived and largely in place before adolescence. Our culture is what we have learned in order to function in our society, and to a great extent, it rules our lives. Culture is not to be confused with human nature, which is common to all human beings. To continue the computer analogy, human nature is the inherited part of our mental software, the part that says we all have the ability to feel fear, anger, joy, love, sadness, and so on. Human nature is the operating system that determines our physical and basic psychological functioning. So our human nature is inherited, and our culture is learned. There's one other part of our mental composition that needs to be acknowledged, and that is our individual personality. That part that makes you, you, and me, which is both inherited and learned. Continuing the computer analogy, individual personality might be seen as the individual computer through which each life plays out. So, to try to make that all clear, you, as an individual computer, different from all other computers, with an operating system called human nature, shared by everyone, and a program called culture, shared only by your group. Another analogy offered by David Livermore is that of an iceberg. The tiny amount of who we are, perhaps 10%, that shows above the waterline, contains our human nature and what Livermore calls cultural artifacts, which are those things most obvious in different cultures: art, clothing, food, money, customs, gestures, and so on. That's just 10% of culture. The obvious is what you see and hear. It's what we recognize when we first encounter a different group of people. Hidden below the surface of this great iceberg is the part of culture we least recognize or understand. The 90%, cultural values, assumptions, unconscious, taken for granted beliefs, perceptions, and feelings. Significantly, this is the largest part of culture, perhaps 90%, and it is completely out of view, beyond our awareness in others, and most likely unrecognized for what it is in ourselves. Acknowledging, studying, and understanding this massive area of being human, culture is the focus of much ongoing study and speculation. There are many different ways of measuring, naming, evaluating, testing, or in any way dealing with human characteristics. The studies I have reviewed focus mainly on what are called dimensions of cultures. A dimension is an aspect of culture that can be measured relative to other cultures. Dimensions of cultures include values related to identity, hierarchy, risk, and time. So I'd just like to talk a little bit about those 4 dimensions. Identity. Who are you? As an American, most likely you respond with some sort of self-definition. We Americans have a pretty clear idea of ourselves as individualists. In fact, it turns out that we are the most individualistic culture in the world. And it may very well be that Unitarian Universalists are the most individualist religion in the world. It may come as a surprise to learn that a great majority of the people in the world don't have this individualist identity. For most cultures in the world today, most especially Chinese, Southeast Asian, many Hispanic peoples, we is more important than I. A person has an identity as part of a group. Rather than individualists, these peoples are collectivists. And here, quoting from one of my sources, in the collectivist family, children learn to make their bearings from others when it comes to opinions. Personal opinions do not exist. Opinions are predetermined by the group. If a new issue comes up on which there is no established group opinion, some kind of family conference is necessary before an opinion can be given. A child who repeatedly voices opinions deviating from what is collectively felt is considered to have a bad character. In the individualist family, on the contrary, children are expected and encouraged to develop opinions of their own, and a child who always only reflects the opinions of others is considered to have a weak character. In most collectivist cultures, direct confrontation of another person is considered rude and undesirable. The word no is seldom used because saying no is a confrontation. You may be right, and we will think about it, are polite ways of turning down a request. In individualist cultures, on the other hand, speaking one's mind is considered a virtue. In individualist societies, the norm is that one should treat everybody alike. In sociological jargon, this is known as universalism. In collectivist societies, the reverse is true, as the distinction between our group and other groups is at the very root of people's consciousness. Treating one's friends better than others is natural and ethical. Sociologists call this way of acting particularism. Please note that while we Americans are extremely individualistic, and other cultures like the Chinese are extremely collectivists, most cultures fall somewhere in between on a continuum. That is true of all the dimensions, that they are not simply either or choices, but that many cultures, while favoring one or the other extreme, lie somewhere in between. A second dimension of culture is called hierarchy. All cultures have degrees of inequality, which is another way of saying that some people have more power than others. The gap between those with and those without power is called power distance. In some countries, there is a clear separation between the rulers and the ruled, the managers and the managed, the teachers and the learners, which is maintained and respected. These are high power distance countries. Other countries like ours are low power distance, where often the boundaries are not clear. Yet we Americans seem fascinated by the British monarchy, for example, which maintains high power distance. We are intrigued by what appears to be a change in the Vatican from traditional high power distance of former popes to an apparent lower power distance of Pope Francis. And as much as we may like this change, it is clear that others from high power distance cultures are confused and upset. Power distance can be defined as the extent to which the less and the more powerful members of institutions and organizations within a country expect and accept that power is distributed unequally. We need to understand that a majority of the people in the world fall into specific groups that hold or lack power in ways that are most likely unfamiliar to us, and they consequently behave in ways we don't understand. Next in our dimensions of culture is risk. It is clear that countries differ in their tolerance of the ambiguous and the unpredictable. In some countries, the people share mental programming that leads them to avoid uncertainty. To do that, they create laws that direct how everything should be done, and they follow those laws. Other countries with lower uncertainty avoidance have fewer laws, fewer rules, and let day-to-day matters work their way out. The USA is a mixed bag. For example, with the low uncertainty avoidance of the National Rifle Association, conflicting with those who want tougher gun laws. In raising children, weak uncertainty avoidance family life is more relaxed, and the rules for children on what is dirty or taboo are lenient. Strong uncertainty avoidance family life is more stressful, and the rules for children on what is dirty or taboo are tight. Students from strong uncertainty avoidance countries expect their teachers to be experts who have all the answers. Many of us here are teachers or were teachers, and this is very significant. Teachers who use cryptic academic language are respected, that is, in uncertainty avoidance countries. Some of the eminent gurus from these countries write such difficult prose that one needs commentaries by more ordinary creatures explaining what the guru really meant. And I quote from one of my sources, "German students are brought up in the belief that anything which is easy enough for them to understand is dubious and probably unscientific." Students from weak uncertainty avoidance countries accept a teacher who says, "I don't know." Their respect goes to teachers who use plain language and to books explaining difficult issues in ordinary terms. Today, here in America, we have a rather bizarre confrontation between people who advocate for open discussion and teaching of reality-based information and those who gain political power by withholding information, the enlightened versus the anti-woke. I'm so proud to be woke myself. That is a political battle related to, among other things, power distance, cultural values. Another value dimension is time. We Americans pretty much agree that time is money and that we shouldn't waste time. Our culture goes by the clock. Yet we exist largely within a limited, short-term time perspective. We neither know nor seem to care very much about the past, and we seldom plan very far into the future. Much of the world doesn't share our sense of time. In many countries, relationships trump schedules. Conversations and meetings end when they are finished, rather than when time runs out, which of course requires revisions of future plans, which is all a part of the daily routine. For many cultures, the past, history going back hundreds or even thousands of years, is part of day-to-day thinking, and planning of the future may span decades or more, forming long-term time perspective. Now, I've mentioned 4 dimensions of cultures: identity, hierarchy, risk, and time. And there is so much more to each of these. Other major dimensions are masculinity, femininity, competitiveness, cooperativeness, explicit, implicit communications, being, doing, which I only list here, but which are enormously important. It's a huge field. When enough studies are done and validated, it is possible to draw up a profile of the culture of a country. This work has been done, focusing on cultural programming people in most countries of the world. We have lists of characteristics and behaviors of just about every culture: Japanese, German, British, Chinese, Ethiopian, Mexican, and yes, Americans from the USA. And you may be wondering, can any culture, including our own, be fairly profiled by a list of characteristics and behaviors? I think the answer is yes, if we have the results of unbiased scientific research. Once it is clear that we Americans are the most individualistic culture in the world, radically individualistic, as well as low power distance, low uncertainty avoidance, and short-term time perspective, we begin to understand that we are thinking, evaluating, and acting in ways that are different from and confusing to a majority of the people in the rest of the world. We just assume that our way is the right way, and we send off our ambassadors, our corporate executives, our Peace Corps, our military, with the idea that the world wants and needs to be like us. That is clearly not the case. Having accumulated so much information on the various cultures of the world, the next step was to develop a way to teach and evaluate a person's understanding of cultures as cultural intelligence. The first publication of cultural intelligence research was in the year 2003. So this is a relatively new field. David Livermore has been a pioneer in teaching and testing what is called CQ, cultural intelligence. A person's capability to function effectively in situations characterized by cultural diversity. We have CQ, we have IQ, we have EQ, all very important. Livermore has broken down CQ into four parts. First, it comes understanding cross-cultural issues and differences. Then comes awareness as we interact cross-culturally. Then comes our interest and motivation to adapt. And finally, CQ refers to the extent to which we appropriately change our verbal and nonverbal actions when we interact cross-culturally. This learning process challenges what we may have assumed to be common sense and requires commitment and hard work that transforms understanding of the world in profound ways. And not everyone is really up to doing that. Some people with good intentions make a point of insisting that we are all alike. To some extent, that is true, if we are talking about the basics of human nature. However, if it is said about cultures of different groups, it is simply not true and stands in the way of reaching any kind of meaningful understanding and relationship. We need to recognize and value our differences. We need cultural intelligence. For me, the study of CQ has opened up a whole new way of understanding the world around me. Consider, all religion is learned. All religion is a part of culture. That may be a whole new perspective for some people. A learned part of our culture. The USA has a dominant Bible-based culture in which we Unitarian Universalists dwell as a relatively small subculture, inescapably bound to specific ancient cultures and beliefs. Interesting how we fit in or don't. Our Unitarian Universalist principles and purposes and our Unitarian Universalist religious education and development affirm and promote our shared values, our Unitarian Universalist culture, giving us a group identity. We Unitarian Universalists teach our children to be individualists, to think for themselves, to question authority, to be universalist, to treat people as equals, to take risks, and to keep time schedules. In doing that, we are like many other Americans, but very different from cultures in much of the rest of the world, including some that call themselves Unitarians. Many American subcultures exist, including religious, racial, ethnic groups, old and young, rich and poor, straight and gay, political, and so on. Many of us divided in ways related to the culture we have learned that differs so much from cultures of other American groups. I have come to believe that in order to move forward in ending racial injustice, in resolving extreme political conflicts, in confronting religious bigotry, we need our schools, churches, and governments to study and advocate for understanding and applying knowledge of cultural intelligence, which is a key to right relationships.
Thank you, John. Please rise and bow to your spirit as we sing our response, "We Would Be One." It's number 318 in the gray hymnal. The words are also up front. And then please remain standing as we close this portion of the service, as we extinguish the chalice. As we extinguish our chalice. We extinguish this flame, but not the light of truth, the warmth of community, or the fire of commitment. These we carry in our hearts until we are together again. Please be seated for a few brief announcements. As our service draws to an end, our service to the world is ready to begin. So let me tell you about some of the opportunities to connect and serve in the days to come. We hope you'll stay for coffee and conversation following the service today. We meet in the Emerson room, which is just beyond the double doors, or if you go out the other double doors to the lobby, take a small right turn to more double doors. If there are double doors, there's coffee. So now you know. I think something is happening this afternoon. Diane, please. Come on up. Into the mic, please. People with the hearing things can't hear you.
Our Buffalo Bills are about to beat New England today, and you don't want to miss it. So 1 o'clock in the Emerson room. We've got some pizza and some snacks for you, so stop in, hang around, and enjoy another great Buffalo win. Thank you.
Oh, optimism is a beautiful thing. Something important is going to happen later this week. There will be people dancing with pointy hats on. Yes, the witch dance is coming to UU Amherst on Saturday from 4 to 6 p.m. We're going to have a potluck afterward. If you would like to see your minister dressed up and dancing with other witches, this is a fundraiser for the Little Free Pantry. And so even if you can't attend, you are welcome to contribute some money, and you know how to do all that. But that is going to be super fun, and it's a potluck, finger foods, no fingers. We're not those kind of witches. Okay, good. Next week's service is entitled Be a Tree, because we're UUs. As individuals and communities of faith, we embody the wisdom of trees, growing our roots ever deeper and extending our branches in, as Sophia Lyon-Faz said, the upward thrust of life. Our heritage includes what we have received and what we give in return. This service will be a unique blend of information and inspiration, and Linda Joy has a package of fabulousness to share with you, so don't miss it. One more announcement. I have the book. If you've been attending for a while and are feeling like you are resonating with our UU values and you would like to become more deeply rooted with this congregation, I invite you to see me following the service and sign the book. There are signatures that go back to our founding, 1954. Super fun to go back and look at the names of people who have come and gone, and it's fabulous. So membership is as simple as aligning with our UU values and signing the book, becoming an active member who has voting rights. Then that also includes a pledge of financial support. So come and see me. If this is feeling like home, it can be your home, and we would be glad to welcome you. As always, if you are feeling the need for more announcements, please read the newsletter because it is chock full of opportunities to connect. And of course, I would be negligent in my duties if I did not offer you the opportunity to support the mission and ministry of UU Amherst. You can text your gift to the number on the screen, go to our website, UU Amherst, click on the giving link, or there are green baskets as you leave the service today if you would like to add a contribution there. We would be happy to have you participate because your gifts and participation are important because we pick fruit from trees we did not plant, and we drink water from wells we did not dig. And that is as it should be, so long as we dig and plant for those who will come after us. I invite you to rise and body your spirit as we sing our closing blessing. look at one another. Travel wide and travel We do not have much time to gladden the hearts of those who travel this way with us, so be swift to love and make haste to be kind. Go in peace.
Have you lived in other cultures?
No, I never have, but I'm keeping up with the world situation, and you were right on. Right on.
Thank you.
We need to be open-minded, right?
Yeah.